This really happened to me in Boston 4 years ago, and for a long time, I couldn't tell it without shaking. I'm 61, and the things I learned in that hospital changed everything I believed about marriage, mercy, and the places we trust to keep us safe. Behind the half-open door of the chapel at Massachusetts General Hospital, I pressed my fingertips into the varnished edge of a wooden pew and heard my husband tell another woman to make sure I never stepped back into my own house again. They had chosen the chapel because there are no cameras inside, because the soft light and the hum of the ventilation make whispers vanish. I could smell the beeswax of the votive candles and the faint, scorched iron scent of old radiators, while my husband, Patrick, described how a fall at home would justify an emergency guardianship filing. The woman, her heels clicking like punctuation on the tile, told him she already had the paperwork ready, and all she needed was a signature and a patient who looked confused enough to fail a test. If you genuinely enjoy our stories, please subscribe to the channel. Tell us where you're from and what time it is right now. It's always fascinating to know how far our story flows. The way a life turns, you almost never sense the hinge in the moment. Hours earlier, I was just a tired woman who owned a bakery on East Broadway in South Boston. The red door, the one with the brick facade, and the crooked awning that the wind keeps worrying in November, waiting for a discharge after a fainting spell. I'm Nora Flynn, if the name matters. The day had begun with a batch of honey oat loaves and a dizzy moment on the step stool while reaching for a bin of flour. I remember falling against a sack of sugar, my elbow striking the steel table, then the gray margins of my vision closing like theater curtains. My cashier, Liza, called 911 when I couldn't remember which day it was. They rolled me into MGH through the white glare of the ambulance bay on Cambridge Street, past a firefighter who smiled and told me his mother loved our pecan pie. In the ER, a nurse with kind eyes and a Bronx accent drew blood and told me I was dehydrated. The scans were clean. A resident with a cowlick clicked through images on a monitor and suggested keeping me overnight. I called Patrick and got his voicemail, then a text. With a client in Charlestown, I'll swing by. He didn't swing by. He never apologized for that. He didn't have to anymore. It was late afternoon when the case manager came in with discharge paperwork and a brisk voice that made me feel like homework due. "You can go home tonight," she said, "as long as someone stays with you." She said it twice. Someone stays with you. I nodded and tried to correct the tremor in my hands. I've always hated hospitals, the air too clean, the light too honest. But the staff had been gentle, and I thought I could fall asleep in my own bed and wake up a normal woman again. That's when the nurse leaned close in the corridor as she took my blood pressure one last time. Her name tag said, Ana Velasquez. Petite, black hair in a bun, the steady competence of a person who becomes the wall you lean on without knowing it. She looked around, lowered her voice so her breath warmed my ear, and whispered, "Don't go home." I blinked at her. "What?" "Don't," she said again, so soft I only saw her lips form it. "He's trying to push the discharge. He asked me if you're on sedatives at home. He asked twice. He's been at the desk. He told them you get confused." "My husband." My mouth felt like it did the time I had a cavity filled without enough Novocaine, numb and furious. Anna's eyes darted toward the nurse's station, where the case manager leaned into a phone, The cord twisted around her fingers as if she meant to strangle it. There's a woman with him. She flashed a card like she's counsel. They walked toward the chapel. I heard a plan that didn't sound like care. She slipped the blood pressure cuff off my arm. I can't leave this floor, but if you need a place to breathe, the chapel's across from the gift shop. There are no cameras inside. If you hear something, record it. She swallowed. I could see the knot move in her throat. You didn't hear this from me. It would be easy to say I was brave, that I marched down the hall with the righteous clarity of a woman wronged. The truth is, I moved like I was learning to walk again. I tucked my phone in my cardigan pocket and told the case manager I needed to use the restroom. I wandered in a slow arc that took me past the gift shop with its Red Sox onesies and get-well balloons, past a volunteer at the information desk who asked if I needed directions, and into the chapel, where the air cooled instantly. Boston can be all bone and wind, even inside, and the chapel felt like a different climate. Dim blue light filtering through stained glass of saints I never remembered. A violet sanctuary lamp flickering like a heartbeat. The door had been propped open with a pocket-sized book of Psalms, the paper thin as onion skin. I slipped behind the last row of pews. My joints snapped softly like old wood. At 61, you learn the noises your body makes and ignore them. The chapel smelled like stone and old candles, and something floral that lived only in memory. I crouched, eased my back down along the wood, and hit record on voice memos. At first, I heard nothing but the whir of air, the distant ding of an elevator, shoe taps in the hall outside. Then Patrick's laugh, a short, humorless exhale. He never laughed like that with me. He used to laugh with his whole body, the bluff Southie boy who charmed me late in life and kept telling me we were a team. I told you she'd fold, he said. She won't fold if you let her rest, a woman answered. Her voice had the expensive smoothness of someone who'd had doors opened her whole life. The window is tonight. She'll be dizzy. You get her home. You make sure she takes her meds. If she falls and there's confusion, I can file first thing in the morning. Suffolk probate will stamp it. The judge owes me 3 favors. My wife doesn't take meds, Patrick said. She's stubborn, organic this, herbal that. That's why we help her, the woman said. I put a starter bottle in with the discharge. Zolpidem, low dose, harmless looking. Case manager will check the box. You help her remember to take one. You tell the EMTs tomorrow morning that she's been getting disoriented all week. We have notes in the chart already. I drafted them. You drafted them, he repeated, and I heard affection in those 3 words, an intimacy I hadn't felt in months. Guardianship is paperwork and narrative, she said. We have both. Once I'm her temporary guardian, you sign the listing agreement for the house. I move cash from her accounts into the conservatorship. Clean, billable, billable. The bakery will keep 2 employees on for optics. You'll get the rest. God, I love you, he said, and the chapel ate the words like a mouth that never had enough. The pew seized under my fingers. I wanted to stand and walk out and tell them I could hear every syllable. But I stared at the sanctuary lamp instead, the little bead of light floating in violet glass, and I let the recording run. I thought you said she doesn't suspect, the woman went on. Because if she does, we file the psych hold tonight, and that's messier. We'll need a Section 12 signed. I'd rather do the clean route in the morning. She's soft, Patrick said. She trusts. She thinks I'm still on her side. The bakery is the prize, babe. That corner is worth $2 million easy if you push the zoning. Her mother left her the triple-decker, tenants on the first 2 floors. We clear it, we cash it. We go to Naples for the winter. Then kiss me already and go sign her out, the woman whispered. Anna's going to be a problem if she keeps hovering. So Anna had a name in their mouths and a target on her back. My phone hummed once, Lisa texting me to ask if I needed anything from the shop, and my heart climbed into my throat. I silenced it and flattened against the pew, a woman in a bad play where the stakes were her life. Their footsteps moved, heels on tile, a shoe squeak, the brush of a coat against wood. I watched the shadow of a woman's calves slice across the gap under the pew, and the scent of expensive perfume, green and sharp, like crushed mint, flooded my nose. I closed my eyes and saw the bakery, the sunlight slatting through the front window, the chalkboard menu with my mother's handwriting, still visible under mine if you knew to look. I saw the crooked banister of the triple-decker in Andrew Square, where I had learned to climb stairs by counting out loud. I kept still. Tonight, the woman said, text me when she's in bed. We file at 8. By noon, you're signing. The chapel door shifted against the little book of Psalms and scraped a fraction wider. Their voices faded into the corridor. I could have stood then, but my knees locked. I counted backward like the EMT taught me. 5, 4, 3, and reached for the end of the pew. The wood was smooth from years of hands that had gripped it and prayed for diagnoses, verdicts, debts forgiven, appointments kept. I didn't pray. I breathed, swallowed, and thought, if they plan to use tonight, I have until dark to turn the whole thing inside out. And then the door creaked again, and footsteps came back toward the chapel, fast, as if someone had remembered something important. And I knew, if I moved too early, the plan might end in that dim room with my voice caught in their throats. I didn't move. They didn't either. What moved was the light, a cloud slipping over the sun, and the sanctuary lamp flickering like it might go out. And in that restless shadow, a hand I didn't recognize landed on the pew, just 2 rows in front of me. I thought I saw someone, a male voice said. Is someone in here? I held my breath and pressed my thumb to the red dot on my phone screen, praying it stayed red. The hand slid off the pew. Footsteps retreated. The door closed at last with a soft puff of displaced air. I waited another 30 seconds, then another, and when my legs finally obeyed, I walked out of that chapel and into a war I never wanted, but could not lose. I didn't go back to my room. I didn't go to the gift shop or the information desk. I went to a different floor and asked for a bathroom, and in the stall, I listened to the recording from the beginning to make sure the voices were clear. Then I texted Anna because I didn't know who else in that building would believe me or be safe to tell. I didn't write anything that could be read over a shoulder. I asked if she could meet me at the vending machines on Blake 11. She replied with one word, 2, and I could see the minute hand on my watch jump like a skittish animal. At the vending machines, I bent over the coin return and pretended to dig for a lost quarter until Anna stood on the other side of the glass and asked if I wanted the Milky Way or the Kit Kat. I told her I wanted both, and we took the candy to a corner where a family's balloons bobbed a little in the conditioned air. You heard them, Anna said, not a question. They're filing in the morning, I said. They put a bottle in the discharge bag. They're counting on me being groggy enough to fall. Anna's jaw tightened. They can note confusion and fold it into a narrative. That happens. It's wrong, but it happens. Listen to me. She stepped closer so the balloons hid her face from the hall. Call the patient advocate office. Call the Attorney General's healthcare line. But that takes time. For tonight, do not go home. Where do I go? My voice sounded like a stranger's. You go across the street to the Liberty. She meant the hotel where the old jail stands, the one with bars still gleaming in the lobby. And you call a friend, not him. You keep the recording safe. Do you have anyone who can help you plant your feet? My cousin Maggie in Quincy, I said. A reporter customer, Rachel, who works at the Globe. She told me once to call her if I ever saw anything rotten. I thought she meant at the bakery. Call both, Anna said. I will document what I can in your chart. Facts only, nothing they can spin. And I will make a quiet note that the discharge can be deferred if there's no safe place. But they'll push. They always push. If they do force it, you leave by a different exit, and you do not go to your address. And you? The guilt of it bit. If they know you warned me. I'm careful, Anna said. I've been doing this a long time. There are ways to put the right details in the right places. She took my hand just once, a squeeze that said I wasn't a mad woman, that I was seen. Do you have cash on you? About 80. I thought of the bakery envelope under the flour bin. It'll do, Liberty if you can, Holiday Inn if you can't. Don't use your card at your usual places. I nodded and put the candy bars in my cardigan pocket like talismans. Anna, I said. They said your name. I know, she said. I make it hard to be invisible. Go. The world sharpened as soon as I had a mission. I stopped by my room long enough to tell the case manager I needed to clear something with my cousin before discharge. She didn't look at me. She highlighted a line and said, Your husband will be here in 20. I asked for my bag and walked away from the unit. I took a wrong turn on purpose, then another, and used a stairwell that smelled like bleach and heat and carried me down into a corridor I'd never seen. Hospitals are little cities, built on maps the public never holds. I emerged into a lobby near the Wang Outpatient Center, crossed the street with the light, and stepped into the Liberty, which used to be a jail and still looks like it from the outside. Thick granite walls, tall arched windows, history pressed into every stone. In the lobby, the bar was beginning to hum with late afternoon noise, and I realized the Liberty was cleverer than a bunker. If I sat in the corner with a club soda and a notebook, I could be anybody. I chose a table under a balcony where shadows puddled. I called Maggie first. My cousin has never been late to a fight in her life, and she said, I'm getting in the car now. Don't go anywhere, baby. Then I called the number on the back of Rachel's business card, the kind she slips with $1 into the tip jar when she buys coffee. She picked up on the second ring. Do you remember me? I asked, and she said, The pecan pie lady. What's happened? I told her. Not the way I'm telling you, with detail and pauses, but the bare bones. Chapel, recording, guardian, house. She whistled, a sharp sound. Guardianship grifts have been a leak we can't patch for years, she said. Do you have the audio? I do. Back it up to the cloud. Email it to me. Use the subject line, recipe. Don't text me about this again. Do you understand? Yes. And Nora? The kindness in her voice almost undid me. You're not crazy. You're hunted. That's different. I'm going to make some calls. I uploaded the recording, called the patient advocate's number Anna had texted, left a message, and then sat with my hands around the cold glass of club soda and watched the hotel fill with the after-work crowd. Pharma reps, a group of residents in scrubs still wrinkled from a 12-hour shift, 2 women in fleece vests arguing over a spreadsheet, a man with glossy hair scrolling like the screen owed him money. When Maggie walked in, thick cardigan, jeans, the expression of a woman who'd fight the ocean if it looked at her wrong, I stood and felt like I'd been rescued from a roof during a flood. "We go to my place in Quincy," she said, before I even hugged her. "You're not seeing Patrick, except on your terms. We hit your house briefly with the police to collect essentials. We swap out any meds. We plant cameras if you want. And you don't sign anything. Can we do that?" "We're going to," she said. "And we're going to tell those tenants of yours to watch like hawks." Maggie's son is a Boston cop, and she texted him with fast fingers. "We'll have a cruiser meet us at your triple." By the time we got to Andrew Square, the streetlights were on and the neighborhood had that bluish dusk that makes everything look like it belongs on a postcard. A cruiser idled by the curb, and a young officer named Keating met us at the door. "You going in, Miss Flynn?" he asked. "We'll walk you." I used my key and felt, for the first time, foreign in my own stairwell. The banister, polished by generations of hands, felt slick. The smell, fabuloso and onion and old wood, hit me like memory. In the second-floor apartment where I live, I went straight to the bathroom cabinet and found the orange-labeled bottle sitting like an amber jewel among the toothpaste and cotton balls. Zolpidem, the label said. The dosage was lower than any physician I'd met at MGH would think meaningful. It was perfect for narrative, as the woman had said. A pill with a reputation. I turned it in my hand, then put it in a Ziploc and gave it to Keating. "Chain of custody?" he asked Maggie, half teasing, half serious. "Document what you can," she said. "We're not starting a war without allies." Patrick wasn't home. That stung in a way I didn't want to examine, as if I had expected a last-minute reprieve and begged the air to convince me I was wrong about a man who used to warm my feet with his hands in winter. I packed a small bag, the shirt my mother embroidered, the box of recipe cards with her looping cursive, the photo of my boy Connor on the day he left for Oregon, and Maggie hustled me out. On the first floor, my tenants, the Riveras, cracked the door and whispered, "Miss Flynn, you okay?" I told them I was, but if anyone came by asking odd questions, to call Maggie, not Patrick. Mrs. Rivera nodded like a general. We left. We didn't go to Quincy yet. We went back to the bakery. The red door looked sleepy in the dark, with the display cases wiped down and the mixer gleaming like a moon under the hanging lamp. Lisa had left me a note on the counter. "You scared us. Come back tomorrow and yell at me for how I stacked the croissants." I breathed and realized I wanted, more than anything, to bake. But we were there for one reason. Maggie's nephew met us with 2 tiny cameras he bought off duty for his side jobs. Nanny cam little black eyes that sit unnoticed on a shelf. We placed one in the living room, one in the kitchen. If Patrick came to collect, to examine, to plant, if he brought anyone, we would see. We drove to Quincy. Maggie made up the guest room while I stood in her kitchen, staring at the light reflecting off the stainless kettle. My hands didn't stop shaking until after midnight. When I finally slept, I dreamed of the chapel's violet lamp and of a door held open by a book someone thought would steady it, and of a voice, mine or God's, I couldn't tell, saying, "Don't go home, don't go home, don't go." I woke to my phone buzzing itself to death on the nightstand. It was 6:21 a.m. Patrick. "Where are you? I'm at the hospital." Patrick again. "They said you left. This looks bad on you." Unknown number. "Ms. Flynn, this is Camille Hart, Counsel for Patient Advocacy. Can we assist with discharge concerns?" She had used all the words that make people relax. She had used them like a lockpick. I didn't respond. I called Rachel at the Globe and left a voicemail like we were talking about muffins. I called the patient advocate again, and the line went to a recording that promised a callback. Maggie brewed coffee. We waited. At 7:40 a.m., my security camera in the living room buzzed an alert. Motion. I opened the app and saw Patrick moving through my living room like a tourist in a museum, hands almost folded behind his back. He looked thinner to me. He looked like someone I didn't know. He checked the mail on the table, flipped through a stack of envelopes, tucked one into his jacket. Then another person stepped into the frame, a woman in a navy suit, dark hair, exactly the posture you learn in a courtroom. So the jury thinks you have better posture than God. She glanced toward the kitchen. I watched her walk off-screen, then reappear with a glass of water. She set it on the table where the morning light made a clean square on the wood. She pulled a small bottle from her bag, palmed it, and tilted one pill under the water's meniscus. The pill made a tiny comet tail as it fell. Maggie leaned over my shoulder and exhaled. "Got you," she whispered. They were rehearsing. They were practicing on an empty room. They were acting like the world didn't have eyes. At 7:52 a.m., I dialed 911 and asked for a cruiser to meet me at Suffolk Probate and Family Court on New Chardon Street at 8:12 a.m., because I intended to walk into that building and sit in the hallway until any judge who would listen would hear me. Maggie put on a blazer-like armor. We drove into Boston with the sun gold and indifferent over the harbor, and as we passed the seaport, I pressed my phone to my chest and whispered through my teeth, a vow I hadn't known I'd been writing since the chapel. "You tried to turn my life into your case file. I will make it your headline." By the time we stepped into the cold hall of the courthouse, with its scuffed floors and an American flag drooping like a tired shoulder, I had the recording backed up in 3 places and the nanny cam clip cued. I had my identification and a list of names: Ana Velasquez, Officer Keating, my tenants, my cousin, the patient advocate, the reporter. I had breath. And for the first time since I'd heard my husband laugh in a place where people go to beg for miracles, I had something like joy. Because if I was here, I wasn't home. And if I wasn't home, the story they'd written about me couldn't start the way they wanted. I took a number and sat on a plastic chair. A man in a rumpled blazer argued on his phone in the stairwell. A woman in a hoodie slept below a sign that said, "Cell phones off." At 8:10, a clerk called my number. I stepped forward and said the words that turned the hinge at last. "I need to file a motion to appear and be heard before any ex parte guardianship is granted in my name. I have evidence of fraud." The clerk, a tired saint with a name tag that said Loretta, looked at me, then at the camera around my neck, then at the phone in my hand. "You got it on video?" she asked. "I do." "Sit," she said, "and don't go anywhere." I thought of the chapel. I thought of a door propped by a book too small to hold it. I thought of the plan they had made like a bridge they assumed I would cross in my sleep. The judge's door opened. A bailiff appeared. "Miss Flynn," he called. I stood, knees steady, and walked toward the door that led to the room where the trap they'd set for me was about to become the trap they wouldn't see until it snapped on both their reputations at once. The end.